Hey everybody, I'm Colin Christianson here with Tenacious Ventures, and we are at the Northwest Event Show in Seattle, Washington. And we are talking to some of the speakers on the stage, some of the booths, and some of the people that we find on the floor just wandering the space. And so today, I actually have Mary Davidson with us with EP Events, and we are going to talk about some of the background, what EP Events does. So why don't you give us a little bit of a background about what you guys do?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks so much for having me. EP Events, we are events with a purpose. It's a cheesy tagline, but the reality is that we plan purposeful events. Those are our jam. That usually looks like fundraising events and corporate events. We really specialize in fundraising, but have been getting a little bit more into corporate as well. And so that is the bulk of what we do. We're event planners. So we provide planning services.
That's great. Yeah. Well, and I love some of the taglines and the stuff you have there, like events with a purpose. Like I really like that. I think it's amazing.
Thank you.
I'm huge about like driving value to different organizations that even we interact with. So I love that you're on the same page and wavelength there. So what are some of the overall events that you've produced in the past? Like, and how do you typically approach some of your event planning with that like purposeful sort of thinking?
Oh, it's a great question. Yeah. So I think it starts from the very beginning. And that sounds so basic, but it's often a step that we see is overlooked, not necessarily from other planners, but we're going into a lot of times nonprofit organizations who may not be extremely familiar with the event process. And so we are able to come in from the beginning and talk about really why we're doing this, the North Star, which once again sounds so simple, but it's a conversation that's a lot of times not being had. One thing that we love to do, just for a specific tip or example, is we meet with the committees or the boards or whoever it is, the stakeholders that are planning the event, and we ask each of them individually, what does success look like for you specifically? And they share it in this open environment, and it really creates this kind of powerful moment, honestly, because everyone is getting behind this joint purpose. And a lot of times their purposes, like their success for the event, is aligned. And that's a really cool moment. So I feel like you're bypassing a lot of potential struggles just by having people share that in a setting. And we do that at the beginning.
That's awesome. That's a good way to kind of set the direction of where overall the event needs to go. So with that, how do you end up then taking that into something that's realized into an actual event? Like, let's say they give you some of their values or their mission, aesthetics, like where does that handoff happen? And then how do you guys take that ball and kind of turn it into something that is actually an event that attendees are going to come and experience or employees are going to be listening to? Like, how does that process go for you?
It looks different for every client. Some of them, from the get-go, they know what they want, and others, we really have to help guide them through that. And so it depends. But in a lot of cases, we kind of help, put the cherry on top, if you will, for the ideas that they have. And so perhaps, and honestly, they are the ones who know the most about their organization, about their mission. So we really just want to like shepherd them to have those conversations. And then we can say, yes, that's a cool idea. Here are some examples of things that we can do or that we have done before with that, or that's not going to work and here's why. And sometimes that's just unfortunately, maybe a tradition thing. Like people just don't do it that way. That doesn't mean it's not going to work, but we need to talk about if this is actually a good idea or not. And so it's a lot of discussion, it's a lot of meetings and things like that. We like to talk through things, provide solutions and examples, and that's what we'll do. But ultimately, we can guide them in a decision, but it's up to them to make that decision. And so we only have so much power in the process, but we're happy to provide options for what we can.
I love how you say that you'll put the cherry on top.
Yep. We do what we can.
Because that's definitely like that polish element that I know for events, and we work with a lot of live events too, to integrate with organizers like that, there's a lot of fine polish that goes into some of these events. So with that, like what are some of the favorite things that you've seen in the past? You can list multiple if you have several favorites, but what are some of the favorite types of events that you put on in the past that really had like that beautiful cherry on the top of it?
So this might sound interesting, but I love simple mission-driven events. And so the examples that I have that are my personal favorite are the simple events. And so one of those is like a luncheon. I love a good luncheon if it is really, really focused on the content and the program. I think now we all know that content is key. It always has been, but it's more important to people nowadays. It's like shorter, impactful content. And so to be able to see that reflected in a program, like during a luncheon, can create a really, really cool moment. It's a 1 hour program, but people are taken on this journey throughout that. There's this like theme, this mission that's weaved throughout it in a really beautiful way that I believe has created some really successful fundraising events, but also just some really solid programs, which is cool to see. And so it's maybe a boring answer, but to me, that's like the impact. I think there's also a lot of like entertainment ideas that we can bring into it that do make a difference.
Yeah.
But when somebody sits down in that chair, if that's the type of event and they're there to be impacted by a program, to me, that's where it really matters. And so I don't know if that's a boring answer, but that's what I'd say.
I mean, the kind of the thing that, as you're speaking about it, the question that comes to mind is what made you get into doing this and doing these events? Like what drove you to choose this as your path?
I kind of fell into events, which I think a lot of us have. My background is in fundraising, so I worked for nonprofit organizations, and with that, you get thrown into events, and so I did, and I realized I liked it, and I realized that I thought I was kind of good at it at the time, and so I had the opportunity just to network and meet a couple people who asked me if I could plan their events, and so it was a really easy way to transition into starting my own business. I'm grateful for that easy transition. Not that it's been easy, but at that time I was like, this makes sense. I'm just going to go all in and jump into this. And it's been crazy ever since. I did start during the pandemic, which was an accident. I started on purpose, but I, of course, didn't think it was going to last so long. So went all into virtual events during that time, learned a new skill. I'm actually, ironically, extremely grateful for that experience because then I've been able to bring that back into in-person events with almost like a little bit more production knowledge than I ever would have cared to have, to be honest. And that's been really valuable.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then the part that rings there is like when you started and you basically thought that you knew a lot, like that there sounds like something hidden in there about like where you were then versus where you were now and a lot of the realizations you've had along the way. So tell us a little bit about those.
I think it's just more the journey of being a business owner, which I think many of us understand. Our industry is very entrepreneurial. And when I started, I didn't think it was going to be easy necessarily, but I have learned just a ton. I learned something new every week. Even being at this show, I'm like meeting new people, learning so many things from them. It's a continuous journey, which I think is amazing. That's what I love. I love that about owning a business and about events. There's constant change. That's exciting to me. I guess I didn't realize how much I would actually be learning as the years went on, and I'm sure that's going to be how it is in the future.
Yeah, well, and even in your space, I do think of actually like the event space as being almost like each event is like a startup. Like, because you have to get the bare bones, get the resources, figure out the direction, the mission of what the client is, change it so that it matches some of those values and that mission.
Yeah.
Like that, I have always thought of kind of events like it's almost like you're starting up every single time, and then over time you get used to that process. So that's even for us for our live video streaming stuff. Like a new client means it's like a new startup again.
Yeah.
And then after you have the same client for a while, even for us, because we have several corporate clients that. Now it becomes, we almost have a TV show that's now like just rinse and repeat, that we know the process, we have the formula, and we just continue to do that, but then pay attention to where evolution can happen. So it's a similar industry that even we're working in with that is it's like a startup, but it's exciting because it's new. And so even meeting new people constantly across all the events, I know that's something I really love about like what I get to do and see people's projects and what they're passionate about. And it's like exciting to be able to connect with different groups of people like that and travel to do it. So what are some of the coolest, you mentioned some of the processes and some of the innovations there actually. So, but what are some of the coolest innovations that you see coming down the pipelines for events and for this industry in general?
I really like to see the different opportunities to network. I think it's that connection piece, that we all talk about. I think it's incredibly important. People come and they expect to leave with connections. And so what can we do to create that? I think there's a lot of innovative technologies that are creating that. Some of them I think that are here at the show. And I think there's going to continue to be a ton of them. The technology space is like a crazy changing all the time. And so I'm excited to see like different ways that we can connect with each other. There's one in particular that I've heard of recently that just, they give you the opportunity to like speed date. That they call it something different, but that's like essentially what it is.
Yeah.
Like, but in the app, and so you can connect with somebody before you get on site, hopefully, and then you have a conference buddy. Likewise, you're going through the process. I love the idea of being able to. There was actually a talk that mentioned this here, creating events. So like you're getting the different personas of people. So like what I just mentioned might work for people who are more introverted, and then people who are extroverted are going to come to an event and just be like ready to rock and talk to anybody. And so creating spaces for everybody, with those different comfort levels, introverted, extroverted, all of that, I think is something that's more important. I'm also excited to see wellness in the industry change and enhance a little bit over time. I think we're getting there, and I'm like so excited to see what's going to happen. It's definitely needed, and that's going to reflect in our events as well.
I love that immersion experience, that stuff. Definitely, I see that coming down the pipeline as well, and using technology to kind of create connections that you might not have had. The whole speed dating concept, and then it might be called speed networking. I think is what I think
that's probably the
dubbed
word
as now.
yeah.
But yes, that's amazing. So if people want to get in touch with you, hear more about you, book you, have you use you for some of their events, how do they get in contact with you?
Yeah, so you can contact us at EP Events. LLC is like our social media tagline. Our website is epevents.org, and contact information is on there to check out. I also do want to say I'm an event nerd. I love the industry. I love just talking about events. And so I do also have a podcast called the Better Events Podcast. We chat every week on Wednesday about how we can create, host, and attend better events. I have a co-host. Her name's Logan Clements, and we do that. We've done it for 4 seasons now, and we built this fun little community. And so if you are a nerd like me, you can check it out. And it's on every major podcast platform.
Awesome. I'm going to have to check it out.
Yeah, you got to check it out.
That sounds great.
We have a good time. And it's short. They're only 30-minute episodes. We know everybody's busy.
You could listen to it on a drive.
Exactly.
Well, cool. It's great having you on. I was really looking forward to sitting down with you. So thanks for coming and squeezing in. And
absolutely. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep.